Have you ever felt just completely stuck? We all face problems in life that feel like these tangled, impossible knots. Well, today, we're diving into a very specific spiritual tool, a devotional prayer designed for those exact moments, the Rosary of Mary, Undoer of Knots. You know, this single line from the prayer, it's the key to everything. It takes our most painful struggles, the ones that paralyze us and trap us in our own stories, and it gives them a name: knots. The entire devotion is built on this really simple but powerful idea, asking for help to gently untangle them, one by one. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to really dig into what these knots actually represent. Then, we'll meet the central figure, Mary, the untangler. From there, we'll break down the anatomy of the prayer itself, explore the 5 core lessons it's meant to teach, and finally, we'll get to its ultimate goal, a complete act of surrender. So let's start with the core problem this prayer is even trying to solve. And it's a universal one, right? That feeling of being totally ensnared by pain, by anguish, or by obstacles that just seem, well, impossible to overcome. This is where the prayer gets really specific. See, these knots aren't just external problems, like, say, a difficult job. The text points inward. It's talking about the suffering that gnaws at you, the paralysis that stops you dead in your tracks, the inner turmoil that keeps you from ever finding peace. It's a profound metaphor for the battles we fight inside ourselves. So if life's problems are knots, who exactly is being asked to untangle them? This brings us to the central figure of the whole devotion and her very, very specific title. Her title is Undoer of Knots, or Desatadora de Nudos in the original Spanish. The idea is that Mary acts as this gentle, maternal figure who can step in, with divine help of course, and patiently work on the tangles in our lives that we've pretty much given up on trying to solve ourselves. And this is a really fascinating detail from the prayer. Mary isn't working alone here. She's the one who tackles the deep-seated, complex knots, the chronic issues. But the prayer also calls on St. Anthony, who's known as the intercessor for urgent, immediate problems, the acute crises. It's like a spiritual 1-2 punch, covering both the long-term struggles and the sudden emergency. Okay, let's get into the mechanics and see how this thing is actually built. How is this rosary structured? Well, it follows a very clear and meditative path. So the prayer really follows a 5-stage path. It kicks off with a supplication. This is where you actually name and present your knots. Then you get to the heart of it, meditating on 5 mysteries, or key themes. For each of those, you recite the Lord's Prayer once and the Hail Mary 10 times. And then it all wraps up with a final prayer of total surrender. Now that central part, contemplating the mysteries, that is where the real spiritual work of this prayer happens. Each one of these mysteries is designed to tackle a very specific internal obstacle. And here's the crucial insight. This prayer isn't some magic wand to make problems just disappear. It's a journey. You move from humility to confronting your inner demons to finding peace through the incredibly difficult work of forgiveness, and finally, to seeking wisdom. Each step is designed to loosen a different part of the knot. This quote from the first mystery is so telling. Notice it doesn't start by demanding a solution. It starts by asking for a change of heart, for humility and faith. The powerful suggestion here is that maybe, just maybe, the first step to untangling our problems is letting go of the pride that helped tie them in the first place. And then we come to what might be the tightest knot for so many of us: resentment. What's so powerful here is that the prayer frames forgiveness as a conscious act of will. The person praying explicitly decides to forgive and release those feelings, making a direct link between that act of forgiving and the untangling of the knot. So after working through those 5 mysteries, the prayer finally reaches its conclusion. This is the final and, you could argue, the most important step of all. The final act is one of complete surrender. It's called a consecration, and it involves entrusting absolutely everything, your entire history with all its knots, and your entire future to a higher power. It is the ultimate act of letting go of control. So what's the purpose of this final surrender? Well, the text suggests it's about achieving 5 key things: finding freedom from that inner prison we talked about, feeling a sense of protection, staying connected to love, learning to accept our own human limitations, and ultimately finding the path we were actually meant to walk. So this prayer offers one very specific, structured path for confronting life's impossible tangles, which, of course, leaves us with a much bigger question.
Whether it's through prayer, meditation, philosophy, or therapy, how do we all attempt to untangle the inevitable, universal knots of just being human?